Alright, boys and girls, today we're going to go over something a little bit different. A non-proc, non-cheesy build. Well, we do have a lot of health, so there's that. But no proc sets, no damage getting done for us, no healing getting done for us. Obviously, we're still technically running proc sets, but I think when people talk about proc sets being a problem, they're referring to ones that do damage and do healing for you, which we have zero of that in this build. All right, let's get into it. Let's have a look at our stats really quickly before we get into the gear. So we're sitting at 16k magic, 45k health. Now, I want to note this. We're using attributes to get this, obviously. If you're not an Australian and you don't play with 300 ping, you do not need this much health. So try splitting your stam and health, maybe 50-50, or if you want to hit really hard, stacking them all into stamina to get that extra damage. Obviously, playing with 300 ping, I need something to make this build viable, and the max health is where I've chose to do that. And then we're at 18.3k stamina. You can easily hit 22-23k stam on this build if you go to less health. Then our recoveries are 1400 mag recovery and 2.1k stam recovery. This build is pretty well split, magic as our defense and stam as our offense. So we are 100% a hybrid build. And then we're looking at 7.5k spell damage with Bloodthirsty. This is well over 8k, especially in group. We're pushing nearly 9k. And then there's other things that will buff this. Keep in mind, this is with a full Bollards, so these are buffed stats, not unbuffed. It's just that you can buff them even more than what I'm showing now. And then our crit chance is super low, but there is good reason for that. We'll find out. Obviously, we're getting a heap of penetration from Bollards, but we're also getting about 10k in our class toolkit with Shulks. So we're well past 20k penetration on this setup. And then our resistances are about 25k on our front bar and almost 30k on our back bar. So pretty reasonable resistances. And then obviously our crit resist is low as well because rallying isn't procced on it at the moment. We're not running it in this build. But anyway, all right, with that out of the way, let's move on to the gear, shall we? Starting with our monster helm, we are in Bollards. Pretty standard bit of kit here. It's been a go-to for a long time. It gives us a bucket ton of penetration and weapon damage as well, and is just a really good set for burst damage in PvP. Then moving down, we are running Mech Acuity on our front bar. This is a set that gives us a lot of crit chance in a small window. So normally you're going to see around 6 to 10 seconds up times on mech. Sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more, just given the scenario and how many dots, and it's a percentage chance, so depending on your luck. Something to keep in mind here, you do want to keep your crit chance as low as possible if you're using mech. So don't have any crit buffs, don't have any daggers, none of that stuff. Because the way mech works is when you do non-critical damage, you proc the mech and it gives you 20% crit chance. So as you're going up the stacks, it's harder and harder to proc it because your crit chance is getting higher and higher and higher. And if you have a base high crit chance, so say if I was sitting at like 30% crit chance, it can cause issues with mech uptime. It's just not worth it, I'll put it that way. And then we are running one trainee. This rounds out our body pieces. And then with jewelry, we are running one Markin. This is pretty much because I can't be bothered farming dead dealers or anything else, but Markham works fine. If you can handle the slow from Sea Serpents, 100% run Sea Serpents. You will smack so hard on this build with Sea Serpents. It will be a lot of things to line up, but if you do, it will be really good. Dead dealers, as I said, is another great option here. Either any of these free mythics will work really well here. And then on our back bar, we are running Clever Alk. another staple in the game. It just gives us a bucket ton of weapon damage, and great for Warden because it gives us a heap of health as well. Our healing is scaled off our health, so GG there. Now, as far as traits go, I play around, swapping around a lot of things here and there, but I think for most people what's going to work is 3 heavy, so your chest, legs, and helmet, reinforced, and then the rest of your body pieces well fitted. These things are personal though, so if you're not much of a dodge roller and you're way more of a blocker, then maybe sturdy's better for you. Just keep that in mind. Don't be scared to make changes to your build for your own playstyle. Build videos are great for a rough idea of what to do, but you should be personalizing your build, and this is one way that you can do this. And then on our jewelry, we are running 2 bloodthirsty and 1 swift at the moment. I've been swapping these in and out over the last few days, so I've tried running infused over bloodthirsty, tried running a couple swift and 1 infused, 1 bloodthirsty, so play around with this too. But you are well over 8,000 weapon damage on this build. If you're running 2 bloodthirsty, you're up into the probably nearly 8.5k. Anyway, that doesn't matter. So yeah, that's what we're doing. Then on our front bar, trait-wise, I'm running Nern, and then on our back bar, I'm running Sturdy on our shield, and then Powered for my staff. You can run Reinforced on the weapon. The traits, as I said, are personal. You should try playing around with them. So yeah, that's the gear out of the way. Mech front bar, Clever Alk back bar, Bollards, 1 trainee, and our mythic. GG. Alright, let's move on. A couple things to note. If you are going to run this build solo and not in a group, and no one, or you do play in a group and no one is running Rallying Cry, swapping the back bar Clever Alk for Rallying Cry is a great option. You can also swap Mechacurity on your front bar out for Order's Wrath if you prefer a little bit more consistent play style than having a mech where you've got a small window to hit your burst. They're both great options as well, so keep that in mind. Alright, let's go over our skills next. We are running Bird of Prey. This gives us our speed buff for 6 seconds, as immunities do snares for 4 seconds, and also gives us Minor Berserk, increasing our damage done by 5%. So you do want this on your front bar. Do not forget that. I do see some people running on back bar. This needs to be on your front bar so you get that 5% extra damage. Then Resolving Vigor is also on our front bar. Some may wonder why this is the case, and there's 2 reasons for that. One, I'm Australian and 300 ping and bar swapping isn't always the most fun thing. So having a heal on both bars means I can kind of heal no matter what bar I'm on. Reason 2 why is Vigor scales off your weapon damage. So if you have higher weapon damage on your front bar, Vigor's going to heal you for more even if you swap to your back bar after casting it. It can make it a little bit annoying in a defense situation having to go to your front bar to hit Vigor, but this is the way I'm running it. If you want to run it on your back bar, feel free to do it, but keep those things in mind. Then we are running Deep Fissure. This is this is basically what we're lining our burst up around, and it gives us a lot of penetration, nearly 10,000 penetration when we hit someone with this. So ideally, in your burst rotation, you want to hit them with the first shulks and then line everything up with the second shulks. Then we are running Rending Slashes. You could run 2-hander on this setup as well, but D-Swing, once again, sucks for 300 ping, so I try and stay away from it. But if you do want to run a 2-hander setup, you could run a D-Swing here instead of Rending Slashes. But yeah, that's that. And then we are running Spin to Win as our execute. Now, once again, if you're running a 2-hander setup, you'd run execute here instead of Spin to Win. And then Dawnbreaker on our front bar. This is where a lot of our burst is going to come from, and it's overall a pretty good skill. On our back bar, Blue Betty. Now, depending on your playstyle, you might actually want to run the Stam version of this. Just the way I've got my whole build set up, I'm running the Magic version, but this is also our Purge, and it's free. So as a Warden player, if you're doing nothing else, you should be just spamming this. So if you got some free time, a couple seconds downtime in a fight or something, just hit this a few times. It's not going to hurt. It doesn't cost you anything, and you're purging for free. Polar Wind. Now, I have had a few people ask why I'm running this over the other one. Polar Wind's healing, especially when our health is so high, is just so much better than Arctic, and we're running a CC elsewhere, so this doesn't really matter. But crazy healing. The tooltips on this when I'm fully buffed are insane. I'm getting like 3.5k crit dot heals from this. So yeah. Then for Ice Fortress, this gives us our armor buff and then minor protection. So we want to keep this up. It's mitigating a lot of damage. And then comes to our flex spot. Now you can run quite a few different things here. I've been playing around with them. I'm going to play today with running Flare just for the major protection. But I have been running Vines in this slot. I've also been running Warden's Dot that they have, Growing Swarm. So this is one of your flex spots in your build. You can play around with different skills and whatever may suit you. And same with the next slot. We are running Reverberating Bash for our CC, but if you don't want to run a CC, you can swap this out and run something else. Now, primarily the reason why I'm running a Sword and Board over an Ice Staff on this setup is because the ultimate Warden doesn't really have a great defensive ultimate. Trees are very dependent on you staying in the trees, and the healing from it's not overly that great. But with Spell Wall, it's not just a defense ult. You should not think of it as a defense ult. It is multi-use, so you can use it in a offensive situation. And what I mean by that is you could be, say, in a 1v5 and you're fighting 5 people, obviously. But you've got, say, 2 Sorks and a ranged Nightblade that are just sitting back in the group and range attacking you, and you're finding it very hard to be able to get damage out because you're always on the back foot. You can pop this. You don't need to worry about the ranged damage from them. And it's also going to throw that damage back in their face, so you can potentially kill them with their own damage. I see Nightblades with bow ults do this all the time. But the point is, don't just think of this as a defensive ult. You can use it in a offensive situation as well. Alright, let's go over a couple of the other little bits and pieces that we may have missed. We are a stage 3 vamp. We're running Smoked Bear as our food and using the Shadow Munderstone. We also have all 60 points into health. I highly recommend, if you're not playing with 300 ping, you don't need this much health. Maybe 30 points into health, 30 points into stam would be a better option for you guys. And then I don't think we mentioned the poisons earlier, so we are running these bad boys. We are getting 5.5 seconds uptime on Minor Prophecy, so this is giving us our minor weapon crit buff. It's really handy on this build. It pushes us up over 50% crit. Anyway, I think that's just about it for this build. If you have any questions, feel free, leave them in the comments section down below, or catch me live on Twitch and ask me over there. If you enjoyed this build, please drop me a sub. That would be muchly appreciated. And as always, boys and girls, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.